Welcome to the Cool Fireman Podcast, a virtual firehouse kitchen table with Matt, Adam, Brian, Doug, and Freddie, where they discuss everything that matters in today's fire service. Now let's get to the show.
What's up, y'all? It's Brian from East Coast Kelly's and the Cool Fireman Podcast. It may look a little different. Today, we are at the South Atlantic Fire Rescue Expo in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we have a very special guest with us today, Russell Davis of West Broad. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do things a little bit different. You'll see that it's just me, and that's super cool. Adam's down on the floor, slinging some seasoning. And again, this is an episode where we get to dive deeper into kind of what makes firefighter companies and businesses unique, and what better place to do that than safer. So Thank you for coming.
Man, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a cool day so far. Day one of the conference. Been doing a lot of talking. So
yeah, it's like, hey, let's just go talk.
The voice goes out.
Let's go talk for another half hour straight.
Right,
it's
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
But very, very cool. So, this theme of this podcast when we bring guests on is about tell us your story.
Yeah.
We want to hear that. And then what we would love to hear after that too is any advice that you have for folks who are interested in just doing their own business, maybe not apparel or whatever. And then we're going to kind of wrap up the thought process of, why do what you do? Why be engaged and why connect with the community? So tell us your story. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So the company I started in 2019, had the crazy idea. It's kind of a neat little story. One of our captains at the time, I was working at Greenville City Fire Department, and he bought us a gift. That around Christmas time, most captains do that, and it ended up being a koozie that was made out of fire hose.
I got one.
Not knocking on where I actually don't even know where he got it, but they had just kind of written our unit number on it. Right. I actually found out. This has probably been a couple years ago. I always knocked on that story about the company he got it from, just wrote it with a Sharpie. It was my captain in the office who was actually writing. So I've been knocking on him the whole time. But long story short, I saw it and I was like, man, this could be so much better. And at the time, I knew nothing about embroidery, or as my guys on the West Broad crew love to call it, sewing. All right, there's a difference in embroidery and sewing, by the way. Just want to point that out. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I knew nothing about it. But I had the idea. I knew about the passport design and passport hats, and I was like, man, I wonder if there's something here. I knew that we throw hose away on the regular. So long story short, next couple days after the holidays, I told my wife to get in the car. I went and bought a $500 embroidery machine, taught myself how to do it out of a spare bedroom in our home. And the rest has been history, man. Here we are 5 years later.
So I got to ask this question, and I meant to ask you this question a million times, either on any of your social media platforms. So what's the story with the hose? Where do you get the hose? Does the hose have a story? My wife owns a repurposed hose purse from burn bags. But what's the story with the hose itself?
In the early days, we used retired hose. A lot of that hose would come from Greenville, just basically anyone that would give it to us.
Right. Free product. That works.
As time went on and we got out there, and this is kind of a road I don't really like to go down, but we had some of those people that were like, you're putting carcinogens on your head. And listen, in the world of business, those, believe it or not, right? And you want me to talk on business. Yeah. That simple little comment can wreck you, right?
Sure.
It's real. What I know is that there is a huge barrier between your forehead and the carcinogens, right? We just couldn't take that gamble anymore. So we went straight to manufacturers. We were like, look, we can't necessarily, we don't want to take the risk of doing retired hose anymore, right? Which was unfortunate because we built the business on that. So we went straight to the manufacturer. So now we buy the hose brand new. It's still fire hose. It's not retired. It was just kind of an unfortunate thing. We had to make a decision. We were like, look, either we take the chance on something silly like this ending us one day, or we move forward. And so that's what we did.
We talk a lot on the show about trust and things, and you have to have that level of trust.
You do.
And for the person that asked, they may have asked for someone who didn't think to ask or whatever, and it brings validity to it, right?
I always use this story. Think back, everyone's going to remember this, the McDonald's incident, right? The McDonald's, the hot coffee incident, right? This lady,
I wrote a paper about it in college.
This lady was handed a hot cup of coffee. I don't remember the exact number that ended up costing McDonald's, but that simple thing for a business our size it's not worth the gamble, right? So at the end of the day, we were able to move our quality along, right? Our quality is a lot more consistent now.
Yeah.
It's just not retired hose. Still fire hose, just not retired hose.
So why do you think the market loves what you've got? I mean, like, there's a line. I went down just to talk to you earlier, and I was like, I had to stand there for a minute because people wanted to talk to you, and they want your product. And, there's leather patches out now on hats, and then you have the traditional embroidery. But what is it about yours?
I think our focus has always been on the brand, right? So anybody can sell a product, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, there is something in having a brand, having an identity, and that identity for us behind our brand is keeping tradition alive, which is, what we try to push, is what we believe in, is our values that we stand behind. And I think, in my personal opinion, right, I'm biased because it's my company, but we've really tried to stick to that. We've tried not to focus so much on the product. We've tried to focus on, look, we're here for firemen. We're here to stand for something. The WB means something to us. We want it to mean something.
It's on every hat, right?
Yeah, it is. It's on every single hat. So that, to us, that's what it's about, right? And that's what's allowed us to kind of move into some new markets, but move the business forward a little bit. Our T-shirt initiative that I'll talk on here in a little bit, but I think that's it, man. I like to think that's it, right? I think people resonate with the WB, and we're out there a lot more. And
so what would you say, maybe, I don't want to say humbling, but what do you think? Well, let's use the word humbling. What do you think since 2019, which doesn't seem like all that long ago, but it's 5 years, right? 5 years in it. What do you think in the last 5 years has really been humbling for you as the owner of West Broad?
I'll be honest with you, man. I knew nothing about business before I got. When I say I knew nothing, I was a first time business owner, right? Like, I'd had a couple little ventures that I'd tried. I tried selling insurance one time. I tried selling cars at CarMax. I knew I had the gift of talking to people because I care about people, and that's what the fire service has ingrained in me. But the journey of business, I don't care who you are, my friend. It will humble you in a skinny second. Whether you've been to college for it, whether you have all the ins and outs, and you've had somebody kind of riding along with it, business itself will humble you. It's such a journey, such a roller coaster. We've had our ups, we've had our downs, right? One of the downs I just talked to you about, we had to make a decision on whether or not to use retired hose anymore.
Well, and that affects your cost, right? Absolutely. You went from something that was probably free and now something that costs, and you were at a decision of what do I want to do there?
And again, those, to me, that was a huge decision. I've had a lot of those along the way I've had to make, right? I've had to make, through growing the company. That comes with having employees and having people working beside you, people that have left. One of the guys that I say guys, I usually call him a kid because he is a kid, Charlie, who had been with me for 4 years, pretty much. He went from a hat maker for us to he was running our entire social media. He was doing awesome photography. He actually went to work for Safe this year. So watching him grow and leave, man, those are all things in business that people don't warn you about or tell you about. Like, when you give people the opportunity to grow, whether it's as an employee, as a contractor, whatever the case, that's going to get attention, right? Charlie, a year ago, I put a camera in his hand and I told him to learn it. I was like, hey man, I can't show you this because I'm not a photographer, but I need you to learn it's what the business needs. And here we are, literally not even a year later, right? And he's got this awesome career now, doing the same thing for a way bigger company. Yeah. I'm so proud of him, right? But as a business owner, it was like one of those moments where you're like, oh, okay, now I got to hire someone.
Yeah, well, now what do I do?
Right? And so now Jared has, he works for us now. I stepped into that role, another younger guy, put a camera in his hand, said, learn it, right? And who knows, a year from now, somebody's probably going to scoop him up from me. Hopefully the company's along a little bit better and I can make that decision a lot harder.
Do you find that's kind of so I mentioned this a couple times on the podcast. When I'm recording this, I'm still president of the State Fire Marshals Association, and we have a saying amongst presidents that we're going to leave it better than we found it.
Absolutely.
And do you feel like that's what you're doing when you bring these employees on, that you're going to leave them or they're going to leave better than they came?
It's all, in my opinion, it's all about the opportunity, right? Like Jared, for instance, that is over our social media. I just straight told him, I was like, look, man, here's the opportunity in front of you. Here's the expectation that this one's a non-negotiable. We got to meet this at least.
Yeah.
Here's the opportunity. And then here's what's possible from it. Right.
Right.
So what you do with this section, which is the opportunity, it's going to matter what happens here. Right. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's endless. The opportunities are endless now, you know? So I think it's all about just giving someone that opportunity and then seeing what they do with it. And man, it's been great for us. I've been able to pour into some young kids that way that have worked for us, and it's been awesome. It's been an awesome experience doing that side of it. It's come with its challenges.
Yeah.
Right.
What would you say is the most challenging thing? Like other than the cancer decision, I mean, those are business decisions, but like the biggest challenge up to this point, because you're still working on shift, right?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Right. So you're still riding a truck, you're still doing things and running a very successful business.
Yeah.
What are some of those? What's the challenge?
I think the biggest one I've had thus far in this 5-year journey, and I think every single, like any business owner I've ever talked to that's been doing it for any length of time, they've had a moment like this. I had a moment roughly 2 years ago when I was in a different partnership in the business. I had a partner at the time, and we needed to part ways, not on bad terms. It just, we weren't aligning on business. It wasn't like a negative Nancy thing, but I had a really big decision, right? And I don't mind saying this now, but it was a decision on, do I put my house on this thing? Right?
Right.
At 37 years of age, that's a huge decision, right? How much do I believe in the company? Right. Is it worth putting my house on the line? You know, ultimately I made the decision to do so, right? And we've come out on the other end of that, but buddy, that is a
different level of commitment.
That is a sleepless night. What in the world am I going to do in the morning? How do I have this conversation with my wife?
Right.
We did it though. I mean, you know, there comes a time in every business. I will stand on this. I will take this one to the grave, where you have to either go all in, or it's just going to show you how serious you are about it. Right. So went all in.
Well, and that shows to the customers too, right? Like, how committed are you in doing it? I don't mind saying it. I've recently started my own company, and outside of social media, and I'm at that level. Like, it was like I'm having to drop big money into things. I say big money to me. And so, you know, and it's like, wow, I need to do this trade show, so I need to front money for hotels and all this other stuff. It's different when it's an expense versus when it's an investment, right? Absolutely. And I think that's the thing is, in companies and firefighter-owned businesses, there's a difference between an investment and an expense. Right. You cut grass, the lawnmower is the investment, the gas is the expense.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's the difference. And so that's where people will see. You pull up to cut a yard. I'm trying to put this in perspective for a firefighter who's thinking about something, because I think that's the understanding is you pull up at the yard with a broke down mower. You're automatically, based off the repetition, you both went to the gas station as the big guy and got the same gas and put it in the mower. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's about the investment that you're wanting to put in. It's about the image.
I think the other factor that the one small thing I would say is, it's at the end of the day, it's what you want out of the business. Sure. Right? So the goal, one of the biggest goals for West Broad, is we want to hose out on every fireman in America, right? Because not only that, we want them to see our values. We want them living by those values, right? When it comes to the fire service. But at the end of the day, if you are starting a business, right, if it's income based, right, there's a way to do that. I mean, you and me both know 2011 firemen that cut grass, right? And why? Because that's an easy little, income that you can get coming in. Yeah. And listen, for something like that, you don't necessarily have to put your house on the line. Right. But when you truly believe in something, they're going ham down there. They are loving it. They're loving it.
If y'all can hear it, there's a deadlift competition going on behind us.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's awesome. It is. It's the fire service, 110%.
Yeah, 1,000%. But yeah, like I say, I mean, it was, for me, when you get to a certain level in business and you have to make a decision like that, it wasn't just before that moment, I could have come in and said, you know what, we're done here. We'll just close it up. I'll sell off the equipment. It's no big deal. If I'm left,
somebody will get the stock that I got on the shelf.
After that day, when I made the decision to put my house on the line, there was no other failure is not an option anymore, right? And what does that make you do, though? What does that make a human do? What does that make a man do, right? When we pull up on the scene of a fire, right, we're just going to pull up and, it's not burning that bad. We'll leave that one. Right. No, man, you got a job to do, and you're not leaving till it's done.
Own it. Yes.
It's the same way I feel.
Love that perspective.
I got a job to do, man, and it's to put our message out there. Is to put some kick-ass hats. Sorry. butt hats
Yeah.
on firemen's heads. What we believe.
I love it.
Man.
So you talked about the T-shirt.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we have time to go to that. So,
Yeah.
So on these types of videos, I always want to ask people, where did you come from? Yep. Where are you today? Yep. And then what's your vision cast? So let's talk about the today. Let's talk about the T-shirt. Let's
absolutely.
Talk about
so we are in the middle of this is new. We're trying to grow the company. Obviously, we are trying to get into uniforms a little bit, but we don't want to risk the brand, right? So we don't want to just become some generic uniform company. We want to help firemen when it comes to things like apparel and whatnot. So our Firehouse Tee initiative is what we have been working on. We've had really good response with it. Basically, firehouses and firehouse tees. That used to be very prevalent, very big. But in today's world, it is a nightmare to deal with firehouse tees. If your station wants a firehouse tee, you got one guy that has to take up all the sizes. He has to take up all the Venmo money. He has to deal with the ordering process. It's a nightmare. So much of a nightmare that a lot of stations have just said, heck with it, bro. We don't want to deal with it.
Right.
We know that firehouse tees is a factor of pride of a station, right? And we don't want people to lose that. We want to instill pride. So we want to give an easy opportunity to still do the firehouse tees and it not be a nightmare for anyone. So literally what we're talking about is it's a step process. If you got artwork out there, if you're listening to this and you're wanting to promote firehouse tees, you're going to send us the artwork. We're going to then talk about shirts, long sleeve hoodies, the things we offer, colors, right? Which would talk through that with you. We then put it on our website for you. We host it on our website. We then shoot you a link, right? And then that link, you just email blast it to the department. Okay. If they want them, great. If they don't, no harm, no foul. The ones that do order, place the order, no different than on Amazon or a hat on our website right now. 3 days later, they got a shirt, hoodie, long sleeve.
3 days later.
3 days. 3 days.
Wow, that's a heck of a turnaround.
Now, depending on time of year,
right?
No,
I get it.
Closer to the holidays.
Well, no, but even remotely close to that.
Yeah, it's
right.
Because 3 to 5 days.
It goes back to what you said. You're getting the T-shirts together. People try to Venmo you. You may see something in 6 to 8 weeks.
Nightmare.
Right, and by the time you get your hoodie, it's hot.
Yep. And for those out there who do want to go the traditional route, like if they want to put together a big order, we do offer that, right? And we're now stepping into embroidery. We say from the waist up, we can handle your embroidery needs. But the Firehouse Tee initiative is more than just like a shirt thing. Like it's we want to promote getting Firehouse Tees back, right? Those stations that maybe used to do them, and now it's just like, you know what? I don't want to deal with that. Like we got you. We can make it easy. It's a simple process. From the time we start the process, it's about 7 days, and we got you on the website live. So, matter of fact, head over to westbroadapparel.com. We've got some live right now some stations out of South Carolina. We got West Mech up here in North Carolina that's rolling with some, but we love it, man. We've had such a great response. It's something we really believe in. We want to push, and it just ties right in with what we do with our hats and everything.
So, what's your average turnaround on your hats? Like,
hats, yeah. Hats right now on a single custom order, we're averaging about a week and a half right now on one hat. Department orders, you can push that out to about 2 weeks. And it's so crazy, man. I know 2020 was crazy for people, right? People, you just said it. I've met people here at Safer this week that have been waiting 3 months for a hat for 24 hats, right?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, bro, like I got you. We can get them to you quicker than that.
And you can do non-hose hats, right? Absolutely. So if the Chief's not quite sold on, right? I'm saying that as a white shirt guy, but you can, like you said, you can handle you guys from the waist up.
Absolutely.
So let's kind of wrap up with this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? Double time, right?
Yeah.
Like the house isn't in jeopardy anymore, right? Everything's good.
We made it past that point.
Right, you made it past that point. Yeah. Shirts are going out like nuts. What would your vision be? You mentioned that earlier, and I meant to ask you that. What is your vision and your mission for West Broad, and how does that correlate to your 5 and 10 years?
The biggest thing for us, and the biggest thing we try to keep in front of us, is truly building the brand. We want the fire service to have a brand to be proud of, right? Mm-hmm. Your sports, if you're into sports, you've got your Adidas and your Nikes and all that good stuff. And, I know there's some brands out there. I'm not stepping on anyone's toes. The good thing about the fire services, I love all the other brands that are out there, Axe Head and all those guys, man. They're awesome. And what I want to see for us is to push that brand movement. to push the message behind keeping tradition alive and what that means. I really encourage everyone to go follow our socials, because we really push what those values are for us. Always coffee, the firehouse table, right? Yes. Earn your spot, all those things, man, like that. We want to see remain after we come and go, right?
Yeah.
And so that's our goal. We want to push the brand. We want to be a big brand in the fire service, right?
So this is a question that Sam from the 2448,
love that guy,
asks all the time. For someone like you, do you see yourself finishing the full ride at your department? I don't want to put you on the spot.
No,
if someone's listening or whatever from your work.
No, I have a great answer.
I know you have a story that's tied back to that, and we didn't.
You know what? I actually got out of the fire service for 6 months to fully focus on the business. And I'm going to tell you something. It was a mistake. I'm not going to sit here and say, like, I think hate is a strong word, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy just trying to be a full-time business owner. Ended up getting back in. I've actually been back in for 2 years now. And I can sit here with 100% certainty and tell you I will ride out a career in the fire service. Even if this overnights and becomes $1 billion, business, I'm going to find some way to still be involved with the fire service.
And it's so cool that you said that, because several of the podcasts that I listen to and other guests that we've interviewed talk about the trust that fire service has when it comes to the people that they work with, that they interact with, they buy stuff from, or the person that they listen to that speaks. If you listen to a person that talks to you about ventilation and they haven't rode a truck in 12 years, why would you be listening to them, right? And I'm saying that as a guy who doesn't do ventilation, but I would tell you, I would sit in the room and I wouldn't trust that.
Right. It's
right.
Tough, right.
So if you're like, hey, I want you to wear my hat because it's going to hold up, it's got value, and you're like, yeah. He wears it.
And at the end of the day, we're a fireman that give a crap about the job. So, there's something to stand on with that, right? I mean, and listen, I use that as a pitch all the time. I guess you could call it a pitch. For me, it's truth. It's like, hey, you can go buy it from, logo up. That's going to be a $9 hat that'll last you 2 weeks, or you can come deal with firemen, right? And yeah, I can't meet their price point usually, but I got a good quality product. I know your guys are going to love it because we've instilled pride behind our hats. Morale we've boosted. We know, because we get that feedback all the time. We got that for you we can offer. And I know what that means because I am one,
I tell members of my team at work, as well as my kids, how much relationships matter. And, you mentioned, companies like the one you mentioned.
Yeah.
There's no relationship. There's no value. And so for me, the reason why I do things like the Cool Fireman Podcast and everything else is because it's my desire to help someone who I know that has that return back. So when you make the comment, he's like, I won't be able to meet that price point. I mean, does it matter? I mean, we have people that pay $9 for a cup of coffee because of the name that's on it, right? And yet you could easily go get a Maxwell House or a Folger and make a whole pot for like 78 cents.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's what goes along with it. And so I guess what I'm getting at is I think the people that are listening to this have no problem paying for that extra value, because what the value is, what the mission is, what the vision is, and the purpose behind it. And it's like, I'm going to help somebody who's coming back full circle with us.
Yeah.
I mean, something as simple as, why would you take on more work to make Firehouse t-shirts when you're busy doing all this other stuff? Is because you saw a problem and you felt like you needed to fix it.
Absolutely. I knew it needed to be fixed, right? Because listen, anytime I can scoop up a station shirt, I'm going to, wherever I'm at in the country, I'm going to scoop one up. All right. I'm going to hit Raleigh up before we leave. It's just a thing for me, but I know people feel the same way about it. And listen, I'll throw this out there to kind of, I know we're trying to wrap it up, but any firefighter out there that is looking to start a business, which I highly encourage to do, right? Especially if you're facing like, hey, I maybe got to get out of the fire service because the money just isn't there, right? Maybe you're facing that. Listen, I'm telling you, you can make the fire service work for you, especially if you love it, right? If you love the job, stay on the job and start a business, right? Like, it's not rocket science. I mean, there are moments where you're like, maybe it is rocket science, but man, you already know the grit that's needed, because if you're in the fire service, you got some type of grit about you, right? And that grit alone will get you through the headaches of business. I'm telling you, a business will be a headache. You're not going to avoid that, right? Why do you think, not everyone starts a business, man? Because it's tough. But man, I've learned so much in life in general, just from being a business owner. Listen, I've got my headaches right now, bro.
Right.
$1 million would solve a lot for me.
For sure. Money's a labor-saving device.
It doesn't work that way. But what I would say to that fireman that's looking, focus on the person, not the product or service.
Yeah.
If you focus on the person and how you can help them, like every day, man, I just want to try to focus on how I can help firemen. That's all I want to do. I just want to help firemen. Right. And I want to put them in some really cool hats.
Right.
You focus on the need that person has. I promise you the money will be an after.
Well, and I think, it's so much bigger. I look at it from a white shirt perspective, and I hope you understand that.
No, I love that perspective.
Well, because it's a morale thing.
Yeah.
A fire chief can buy, can pay for trucks and stations and things, but things like pride, right? So if it's a hat that gives them pride in the firehouse, or a station shirt or whatever, and they're happy and they do their job better and they train more efficient, I couldn't budget for that. I can budget for the hat, but I can't.
How easy was that for you as a chief? How easy was it?
It's super easy. But I can't go in there. That's part of changing the dialogue in the station, and it's about changing just how the whole place operates. And I think that sometimes people lose sight of that. They're so busy in the ones and zeros and spreadsheets. And so much times other people are as well, but that ownership brings value.
It's one of the biggest things I probably would say I love about my product is the fact that I know it's helped morale on stations. Because listen, I've worked at a station where morale sucked. It's not fun, right? And so the fact that I've had people personally tell me it's helped morale in their station, I know it's a hat, but it's like, man, that's why we did this. That's why if it helped somebody in that small way, right, to help them come to work the next day and not feel crappy about being there,
it's better than a pizza party, though, right?
1,000%.
Right? That's the whole thing. So thank you guys for watching. Man. Yeah, drop your website again real quick.
westbroadapparel.com. westbroadapparel.com.
Love it. And then all socials, right?
All
TikTok,
socials,
Instagram.
At West Broad Apparel,
Okay.
We're on the top.
We're on the top. So go give them a follow, y'all, and check them out. Thank you so much for coming in today and doing this. Kudos to whoever's doing the deadlift. There's like 1 million people down there. So hopefully you guys can join us at the South Atlantic Fire Rescue Expo in Raleigh. It's held here annually, and so you'll be able to join us and see cool, awesome people like Russell on the floor, and it would be awesome to have you here. So stay tuned. Right after this, we're going to go and do our housekeeping right after this.
Roll it, Gigi!
Before you leave, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give these firemen a huge thumbs up. Also, make sure you check out the coolfireman.com for more. Thanks!